Welcome back to the Have Not Room. I am Ben. I'm here with Chad to talk about week 3 of Big Brother 28. And we are here to talk about Jason, who has just been evicted from the Big Brother house after a Mallory won blockbuster. A blockbuster themed blockbuster. Very fun little play on words they did there with that comp design. Jason, who was, I think, a preseason favorite for a lot of people. He was kind of like an early season villain, kind of turned anti-hero, I would say, by his end in the house. Brought a lot of drama this week that we'll talk about. Just from his presence as well as just fighting back. So, Chad, what are your kind of immediate thoughts here with Jason leaving the house?
Yeah, I'm like bummed out. Like I thought Jason's speech at the end was very good and also very on point from the viewer's point of view. And that this season has the potential to be very boring now. He was like the classic anti-hero that I think like a lot of us, I mean, at least I'm speaking for myself, didn't really root for early on. But like as he just became this like total face of the other side of the house, the only one like actually putting up a fight to the Power Alliance and like being vocal about it, I was like, I want this guy to win. I want this guy to stay. I want like the tool shed to be in some hot water with this guy and hopefully he gets power. So I'm a little bummed out. I wish he stayed another week and maybe won HOH. But I also think America has kind of the same viewpoint as us, seeing as Julie just said like 5 minutes ago, he was in the top 3 of votes like every single week. So I think we all secretly liked him, or maybe not so secretly. But I'm just so bummed out that he went early. Like I thought, man, if we get another week or two out of him, this pre-jury could have been so much more entertaining. But now it could be a pretty easy coast to the end for our winner picks. Maybe not mine, but maybe
Yeah.
D.
It is looking quite good for me and Brian for sure right now, which is not a surprise. Is what you expected preseason. But yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think, like you said, his speech was great. Like a lot of the time, because some of the votes, or the vast majority of the time, the vote is pretty much locked when they're giving their speeches, so it doesn't really matter. And they usually just use it for shout outs and just kind of like generic boilerplate stuff. Sure. But the things he said in his speech were just flat out true, right? The other side of the house should have rallied together to keep him if they wanted a better chance of fighting against the other side. I mean, we saw in the comp, right? And we've seen in comps across this whole season, Lala not particularly going to be strong in terms of like winning HOH for the underdogs and like getting some kind of, revolution rolling. Jason definitely would have been a much stronger element in the house for doing that. And if we're again talking about, Julie referenced the time capsule vote. I think if Jason stays in the house, he's getting a time capsule, visit tomorrow, almost guaranteed. Does that guarantee him a power? No. Does that guarantee him a good power, even if he gets a power? No. There's pretty much only one good power left. So it's not necessarily like, he gets the vote and then they get like some big thing, but like they've now removed the potential possibility of a strong member of the other side of the house getting something like the Coin of Destiny. Whereas like now, I'd say there's a non-zero chance that we're talking tomorrow about how D has the Coin of Destiny. Like that's like, I think it's a complete possibility. I think D is like one of the more likely people to have gotten the second or third most votes after Jason this week, especially with, I think, him probably getting somewhere in the 70 to 80% of the vote, if I had to guess. The remaining of that vote is going to be very kind of ticky-tack and split. So, like, definitely D could win the vote. Devon's already gave her a rundown of how the comp, or like the time capsule spinning chair thing works and how to game it. So, like, if she games it correctly, she has a 1 in 5 chance of getting essentially a coup d'etat. So like, it's not looking great, right? Even if we get like a Mallory or a Melody or like a Taylor, even maybe HOH, probably Melody, Mallory, or Lyric are probably the best options at this point. Like there's a chance that their HOH just gets screwed up either by a coin of destiny that's given to D, or at the very least by Devins' time and power of veto. So like, yeah, it's rough. I think the other side of the house is gonna have to get their shit together. They're gonna have to actually form a coherent group that isn't just like these disparate pieces. They're gonna have to win at least like 2 out of the next 3 HOHs, and they're gonna have to take big shots and get big players out. So it's a huge ask.
Yeah, you're gonna just have to put up the 3 icons and like guarantee one of them goes home, maybe. But even then, like Devins has an auto out no matter what, so it's gonna be tough. But I think like a Mallory HOH would come in pretty clutch right now. I mean, granted, I hope Devins or D wins. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I hope Taylor wins too, but that's probably not going to happen. But no, I would love to see them like win the whole game, but at least like make it interesting. I want to see, like, I think everyone wants to see them in the hot seat because so far it's just been like the easiest season ever, which speaks to their gameplay. I mean, they're great players and they were picked for the show for a reason.
Yeah, I think that the 6 of them, the like, you know, the red corner, which is now the original red corner with Angela now consumed in with them, basically the tool shed minus Drew and Barrett. Like if that 6 just like marches down to the final like 8-7-6, we're looking for a pretty boring season here. So yeah, I think like, you know, regardless of whether or not I want to have been correct in predicting D as the winner, and Brian having predicted Devins, like I definitely want some kind of back and forth here. Like I think that like if the other side wins power, I don't even think D or Devins is like even relatively likely to go home. I think Kamu is probably the most likely person to take a hit at this point. So like that to me is I think a really good outcome for a week 4 is the other side wins power. Devins is forced to burn his gold or his diamond power veto. Kamu goes home. Now we're kind of looking at like a more even playing field at that point, and we can kind of see where it plays out from there. But if one of those, you know, the other 5 members of that red corner group wins this HOH, I think wrap of the season.
Yeah. Fast forward to October.
Yeah, so I guess we can talk about this week now instead of kind of like projecting for the future. I guess like the big story of the week, you know, Brian and I did like a little bit of a quick recap on Saturday. But between Saturday and now, and then especially like, you know, kind of the highlight of the week came Sunday night with this tea party that Kamu crashes and, you know, confronts Jason about his theoretical lies and double dealing in front of the entire house, which we saw edited together on the episode last night. So, Chad, what was your kind of thoughts on the tea party situation?
I mean, one, it was fun to watch. I watched the like half-hour clip of it, and I think, I mean, it sums up the week already. I mean, everything that they were saying. Well, Jason's defense was actually really good. I think this whole situation was really bad for Kamu to like call up like that, because Jason was pretty much screwed no matter what. So Kamu doing this really only makes Kamu look bad. And everything Jason said was true. Like he didn't actually like fully say like he's targeting specific people, just like the other side of the house, really. And that he would be willing to take shots in a way. So I don't know. I think it just didn't look good for Kamu. I think that's why Kamu is going to be targeted, is because he's the one that is like the head of the spear with this whole thing. I don't know. I think it's just a dumb, kind of bold move by Kamu because he's in power. I think it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't in power. Or, I mean, if anyone else in that Toolshed Alliance was in power, Kamu still, he wouldn't have said that. But because he was specifically HOH, I think he got a form like HOH-itis in a way and felt like he could say all these things without any repercussions. But I think, like you said, the first person we target is going to be Kamu by the other side.
Yeah, and the show kind of shows, I guess, like Dean Devins' reaction to the Tea Party situation. And they're they know that this is like going to hurt Kamu's game in the long term, and is like going to make him a big target for the other side. What they didn't really show in last night's episode was that Dee and Devins both knew that Kamu planned to do this ahead of time, and were each in their own way kind of encouraging him to do this, specifically because they thought that it was going to, have a negative consequence on his game and make him our target over them. But the big thing that Dee did not want to come out in this situation, or in this like confrontation, was the information that she told him, which is that Jason had come to him, and we saw this conversation on the episode, in the bathroom, and said, "Hey, keep me around. I'll take the shot at Kamu, Haley, and Chuck for you." And technically, Kamu doesn't bring this out in the confrontation. It ends up kind of like incidentally coming out because Jason figures that some of the information that Kamu is using against him in this confrontation is coming from Angela. Jason flips off Angela and is like basically implying that she was the one that leaked this info, which she actually didn't in this case. There's much to criticize about Angela, but in this case, it's a stray. And then Angela jumps in and basically outs the information that Jason had told Dee. It didn't seem though like it ended up actually fully blowing back onto Dee here. It looks like the primary people that are going to be that end up taking the heat for some of the information that came out, and some of the the non-action, I guess, are Haley and, to a lesser extent, Drew. Haley and Drew have pretty consistently at this point been scapegoats for the other players in the house. And that's not to say that Haley and Drew are not, have not done things that warrant being called out or blamed, but they've definitely been called out and blamed for a lot of things that they have not been the main perpetrator of. But yeah, that is like kind of a strategy or a tactic that is used by the other members of this Toolshed Alliance. Is when anything goes wrong, you blame it on Haley, you blame it on Drew.
Yeah, I mean, Drew's kind of on the bottom of that alliance with Barrett, and they know it. Haley's kind of just there, but she's like barely there in the episode, so makes sense.
Yeah, I think the reason that Haley became an easy scapegoat is because so many people just dislike her, like on a personal level, and so it's a very easy thing to sell. But yeah, like you said, Drew and Barrett are, we reference like this six of the Toolshed is what like are who are in the like good spot right now. Drew and Barrett at this point have essentially been like iced out of the majority alliance, but they don't actually fully know it yet. They've been fed, I would say, enough clues that they should have picked this up by now, that they are not in the position that they think they are in. But yeah, this is, I think, one of the main reasons why this like kind of vote flip was floated for a bit, especially the vote flip to keep Mallory over Lala, which at the point of the eviction would not have happened. If Mallory lost that blockbuster to Jason, Mallory would have been the one to go home over Lala. Lala was 100% safe in all scenarios by the time the eviction vote happened. So we're kind of at a point here, I guess, where we are waiting for Barrett and Drew to wake up so that this power structure can actually fully collapse, like in itself, and like, they can find a new position in the game that is more suitable for them, which at this point is difficult because people like Lyric, people like Mallory, people like Taylor and Yash to a degree are realizing that Drew and Barrett are basically just like feeding them false hope. And like they're still playing with the majority. And so like they're kind of in a really tricky position where they've been iced out of the majority, but they don't know it. So they still act like they're a part of the majority, and they still are like playing to the outsiders as if they're like, yeah, we'll maybe come with you for this vote. We'll maybe try to formulate a plan with you. And then they like, they bail at the last minute, or they go to Dee and they rat out the information to Dee. They go to Devins, they rat out the information to Devins. They go to Kamu, they rat out the information to Kamu. And they're just kind of burning a lot of their capital that they're going to need with the side that they actually have a potential to work with. So it's just really hard if they don't fix their game, and then in like this upcoming week, primarily what we'll probably be looking at is a Melody or a Mallory HOH being their best case. Then they're just like in a really tough position to do anything with their game moving forward.
Yeah, they're in that position of like they could either be the 2 swing votes, or I mean they kind of have to commit to the other side at this point. I mean the Toolshed's already kicked them out, so it's just the 6. So but if they flip now or realize that they're in the position that they can flip, then they could potentially form a new majority alliance with the other side, having all that information from the first 2 weeks or so before they got kicked out. So they're like definitely in a tricky spot, but if they like figure it out and do the right things, they could definitely like form a bigger alliance in their favor and be in probably a better spot. But then it just comes down to getting power and having opportunities to take shots. But I think with Devins having like the best power in the game, it's going to be like you have to win multiple HOHs in a row for it to actually matter. So It's going to be tough, but it all comes down to those 2 figuring it out, which doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. I think like we'll see. I think a lot of what's upcoming, like this upcoming HOH is gonna be a big kind of decision maker of to where the season is going. Theoretically, this like red corner core only has 5 people competing for it versus 8 people on the other side. So like numerically, you would think it's more likely that the other side wins power. But like, the 5 people that are competing, like D and Devins have already won HOH before. Angela has been not great this season, but like she had in the past, and BB26 won a decent number of comps. Haley has been surprisingly pretty bad in comps, other than the Devins HOH that she was second in, that Devin tried to throw to her at the very end. Chuck won the first safety comp, but has been pretty like mediocre, I think, across the board in the other comps. But it's also like pretty early still. We haven't seen a ton of these players play in like a wide variety of comps. So I do think it's like maybe like a coin flip at this point as to which side wins power. So I guess we can kind of talk through what the plan is, because like right now, I believe the plan is to target Drew directly next week if somebody in the red corner wins. And that includes Devins, who has up until this week been more defensive of Drew than the rest of them. But yeah, I think right now, the like most likely noms that we're going to see from the other side, from Devins D, Haley, Kamu, or Angela, is I would guess something like Drew, Melody, Mallory is my guess. Potentially, there's I think a potential that they change their plan to do a backdoor on Drew, in which case they'd probably put up the Littles and then backdoor Drew. That is kind of what I'm leaning towards as like a likely outcome here. So like, we've been talking for a while about what Drew having a certain amount of runway with his game, and his runway is basically run out. And I think we could also, I guess, talk about, do we think it's a good idea for them to be targeting Drew right now, or do you think that there are kind of better targets on the other side? Obviously, they've got out Rome, they've got out Jason now, these 2 like kind of, strong guys who are doing well in comps. But like they do still have Mallory on the other side, who has now won a veto, a clutch veto to save herself, won a clutch blockbuster to save herself, came in second in the veto this week as well to Lyric. Did pretty well in the other HOHs. So like Mallory is arguably, I would say, like a top 3 or 4 comp player in the house right now. Do you think it should be more important for them to target Mallory or Drew going into next week?
I think with the blockbuster, you just throw them both up with like a bond, because either way, like I think going after Drew now for your Devins D, that alliance it's a little early, especially because they still think they're with them, and you could easily just like play that up for another week, maybe 2 weeks. and like maybe even all the way to jury, and just pick off the other side of the house. Because either way, if those six stay tight, now you're a 6-person alliance going into jury with these two stragglers that, I mean, what are they going to do, really? They haven't shown that they're good at any comps yet, mental, physical, or skill. So everything it still feels early to go after those two. If you really want to take the shot, I would throw Drew up with Mallory and then whoever you want, really. And just see what happens. I mean, no matter what, like you still have that diamond power veto in your back pocket if like shit goes really wrong, which I can't see how it would because you have so many other targets on that side of the house at this point in the game. I think it's just too early. Maybe wait a week or two, depending on what happens and who gets power. And everything could change this week. Could change tonight with the new HOH, but it just feels a little early to take a shot like that on someone who is like fully believes that you're still working with them.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing too. Is obviously from their perspective, they don't think that Drew and Barrett are loyal to them. Us, with all the information, can see that Drew and Barrett are loyal to them, even if they are trying to like set up basically alternative options and like backup plans and insurance policies for if the other side wins HOH. And they were definitively like thinking about trying to keep Mallory. We saw Drew in the episode campaigning to try to keep Mallory. They both wanted Mallory to stay for obvious reasons. And this was like kind of supposed to be like their loyalty test if Jason won the blockbuster as to whether or not they would have voted out Mallory. And a lot of them I think are not happy with the outcome because they weren't able to like execute this loyalty test that they've already kind of pre-decided that Drew and Barrett have failed, even though they would have passed it because they would have evicted Mallory. So it's just like a weird kind of circumstance where they've just like invented in their brains that Drew and Barrett are unsalvageable as allies, and they've just kind of discarded them. And on top of that, we've had this majority be like, okay, well, if we lose Drew and Barrett, we still need numbers. So the numbers that they've kind of tried to pick up here are Taylor and Yash. Those are kind of like the new pieces that this majority alliance has been playing with. Mm-hmm. We see Taylor. We didn't actually really see any of this on the episodes, unfortunately. But Taylor went to both Kamu and Devons and pitched this very elaborate kind of play of like dividing the house into trios and then each pulling a person from the trio to make like this like brigade cookout-esque structure where everyone kind of has their own parachute, which she called tethers to their trio, but then they kind of like maneuver the house that way. And like Kamu and Devons humored her kind of, but also were like, yeah, this is not going to work. And what they eventually landed on was like Kamu, Devons, and Taylor making like a secret 3-person alliance. And I think that probably was at least a contributing factor to why Taylor did not want to flip this vote and evict Lala in either case, the Jason or the Mallory case. Although obviously her personal connection to Lala played into effect as well. But that certainly, I think like it's easy to justify an emotional decision if you at least have some kind of logical piece that you can cling on to as like, this can make sense for me and I can like make this work. Whereas if you don't have that, it's like, it's a lot easier to kind of change your mind and like, play head versus heart. But if you can convince yourself that there's a reason that your head aligns with your heart, then it's a little bit of an easier sell.
Yeah, it's way easier for us as the viewer who sees everything to, make these reads. But isn't that what Taylor was basically saying, like in her pre-interviews, that she wanted to basically make the brigade?
Kind of. So in her preseason thing, her view was like there are 3 sides of the house. There's like 2 sides and then a middle group. And then each side of the house in the middle group has some kind of leader. And then the 3 leaders are in a secret alliance. And so the three leaders of their individual three sides are like basically like controlling their people to not target the other leader and instead target each other's like lower level people. It's like a similar premise, and it's similarly like convoluted and like you can't force it. You can't like force like a strategy onto a structure that it doesn't fit. And I think like this was very much a case of like Taylor trying to like, you know, force the structure to be a certain way so that she can make a strategy that like doesn't kind of fundamentally work. Because like the way that like the reason that, you know, the Brigade, the Pretty Boys, the Cookout worked partially was because all three alliances were extremely loyal to each other for various reasons. And that loyalty has to be formed and bonded early in order for you to like have a strong allegiance to the core alliance, the core secret alliance, over your individual parachutes and plus ones. That doesn't exist in whatever Taylor was pitching. She was pitching basically like 5 completely random, disparate people coming together out of nowhere. On top of that, like the way that those structures of those seasons formed was these core secret alliances were created, and then they were each dispatched to find a +1 or a parachute. And like the structure kind of came together around that alliance in secret. That's not the case here. This is like trying to like retrofit a fake structure onto like a strategy like in reverse. It's like reverse engineering, and it doesn't really work when it comes to like kind of, you know, social, you know, structures and stuff like that. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, like the effort, but doesn't fit here.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely like I appreciate her doing something, right? Because like even though her idea and her plan didn't go anywhere and kind of low-key got shut down, like she still got what ends up being a mostly fake but like real enough to her at least 3-person alliance with Kamu and Devins, and that has contributed her to being one of the lower priority targets of the other side at this point, and I think one of the more likely people to make it deeper into the game to the point where like maybe she's still around when this structure inevitably collapses, if it were to collapse. So I like it from that perspective, especially with her being likely to lose an ally this week. And then I've also really liked what Yash has been doing. We got a good DR from Yash where he's talking about the vote flip and he's talking about his position. And I actually think Yash has, ironically, like one of the better reads on the house structure and like of people's positions. I think Yash has a better read on Drew and Barrett's position than they do. And which is surprising for somebody who was almost the first boot of the season. But I've really enjoyed him as a player this week. He's essentially kind of stolen Drew and Barrett's position and is kind of doing it better than they were, because I think a lot of people just don't take him seriously as a player to the level that they take Drew and Barrett, and so he's able to get away with more, at least for now. But he forms what ends up being like, you know, he's kind of bringing information back and forth all week between the other side and primarily Devins, but Kamu as well, mostly Devins. He has this like fake Dapper Dan's alliance with Drew Barrett and Devins that they kind of dispatched in order to control him as a potential 9th member for the tool shed. He's like been kind of like the unofficial 9th member of the tool shed to the degree where both Kamu and Drew multiple times have said the name tool shed in front of him as a slip up, like at least 4 or 5 times. And to us, to our knowledge, he has not picked up on it being an alliance name, which is funny.
Oh my God.
But this week, I think was it last night or the night before? It's either Tuesday or Wednesday. Him, Kamu, Devins, and D formed this 4-person Wolfpack alliance. There's been like, you know, Taylor has like done this thing of like, would you rather be a vampire or a werewolf? That's like been a recurring questions he's been asking people this week. And I think they were like, you know, I think almost everyone picked vampire. I think those were like the 4 people who picked werewolf or something like that. I wasn't paying too much attention to the vampire versus werewolf question at all until it like somehow played the part in the naming of this fake alliance. But yeah, there we go again. So we have Wolfpack Alliance, which is D Devons and Kamu plus Yash. We have the Honor Society, which is another fake alliance, which is D'Angela, Lala, and Taylor, which we saw on Unlocked last week. And now we also have a new fake alliance with Taylor, with Kamu and Devons. So you can see like the pieces of this majority, and in particular the Icons plus Kamu, really trying to work to pick up these like outside pieces in order to like prevent them from coalescing into an actual force against them.
If it's intentional, it's pretty smart, but
it's definitely intentional from the like Icons plus Kamu to do this. Yeah, that they I think have noticed, like they most retroactively noticed, right? They decided that they were going to ice out Drew and Barrett, and then they started icing out Drew and Barrett, and then they started looking at the numbers, and they were like, oh wait, hold on, if it comes down to a vote, we don't have the votes, right? Like, if Drew and Barrett tied with the other side and Taylor was willing to vote out Lala, the other side had the votes to both keep Jason or Mallory if they wanted to. Like,
yeah,
they had 7 versus 5. And at a certain point, Devons in particular noticed this. And so he was like, okay, we need to lock down Yash, we need to lock down Taylor. Those are the two like pieces that we can get. So yeah, I don't know how real this is for Taylor and Yash. At the very least, it feels like a way for them to be lower level targets. We see Yash and the DR mention this, like, you know, I just got to kind of do what I can. Like, if we make this flip, even if it succeeds, I think that I'll be like one of the lesser targets if the power flips back on us again, which I think is true. So I think it's upfront gameplay from them. So I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too. I think it's, Yash has like really salvaged himself since week 1. So he's definitely been a little bit more interesting, and I'm glad that he's, stepping it up. And I think it's going to be this week's HOH is like so paramount. I think if like Yash happened to win it, that'd be super, super interesting to see.
Yeah, Yash would be a very interesting HOH because I think Yash probably targets the Kamu, Haley, Chuck trio, which would be interesting given that he just formed an alliance with Kamu. Maybe he does maybe he tries to hedge against that and does like at the very least to start Chuck, Haley, Angela, which I think would be a mistake. But I think that there's definitely a chance he takes a big swing. Because I think a lot of people like really kind of think that they have Yash at the very least as like a side piece. So I think that a lot of people will kind of be surprised. From this week, I guess, anything else you want to talk about from the episodes and from like this past week?
No, I mean, it was a fun week to watch. Jason try to do what he can. It was fun to see a player actually try and make correct reads on the game, and pointing out and naming every member of the Power Alliance and like doing his best to at least take a shot. But a lot of players are just still playing a little scared, and they're not willing to take these shots so early, which I don't blame them. I mean, it's week 3. If this was like a little later in the game, I think you'd probably have better luck. But at this point in Big Brother, it's still like anyone but me. I feel like that's how it just feels with a lot of seasons. But at some point, that momentum is going to shift, and players are going to start realizing, shit, Jason was right way back in week 3, and we got to start. We're next. We're just going to be picked off one by one until the 6 make it to jury.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it can't be understated that the majority is doing, like I said, we coming through like a good job, even though they've, I think, dropped the ball. They've opened the door to have dropped the ball with Drew and Barrett, even though they haven't picked up on it yet. They have done a good enough job with basically giving people something to lose. Because like the reason the way that like a minority or like an outsider crew, because they're not even technically the minority, we just went through like they're if with Drew and Barrett on their side, it's 8-6 right now.
Yeah.
So like they could potentially form a majority if they wanted to. But you know, they are like from a social structure perspective, the minority. But the reason that the minority group or the outsiders group don't coalesce is because there's usually people within that group that feel like taking that risk gives them something to lose. Like they have something to lose from taking that risk, right? The reason you would take a risk in your gameplay this early in the season in Big Brother is because you feel like you have nothing to lose. And it's your only shot to like, you know, get back into the game. But with these moves that the vets have been making, Drew and Barrett feel like they have something to lose still because they feel like they're still within the tool shed, at least right now. You know, and now Taylor and Yash have been given something to lose potentially, like these kind of positional advantages. It's really well done because like this kind of, you know, if we're talking like a sociologically, you know, from a sociological manipulation perspective, the people in power, the way that they're able to control a majority masses that could rise up against them is like you slightly elevate some of the people in that you know, that underdog position to make them feel like they have an advantage over the others. And so like you don't want to like lower yourself to the position of the worst players than you to like try to form a coalition because you feel like you're kind of giving up potential advantage, giving up potential like, you know, social like structure position that you have, even if in the long term it's really your only play to get a chance to like actually win the game. So that's really like the kind of trick, and that's like how a majority or like a power crew is able to maintain power through potential shifts. And they've done a good job. So I can't fault them for doing a good job. I just you know, I do hope for some kind of, you know, actual fight.
Yeah, I mean, what we're saying is all coming from a perspective of what's like the most fun to watch season, and the most fun to watch season is a season where every week's like we have no idea what's going to happen. It's a mess. There's drama, which is what Jason was bringing to the table. That's not taking away from the fact that the icons, the tool shed, and the red corner are all doing like a great job. Like they're crushing this game, and like obviously we don't like to see a season where they just cakewalk to the end like Cody and All Stars. It was boring, but like Cody played a great game, and that's not fun to watch. But now, like you see, like these are why the vets and why these players get called back for seasons because they're good. I think some like the vets also already have that in their mind that we got nothing to lose. Let's play a game. And what new players don't have that yet because it's still early, and they just like want to stay on the show as long as possible. They want to play it more safe. But when you finally do get back to that corner, like if I don't do something, I'm going home. And like my dream of being on the show is over because I didn't do something or I didn't fight or I guess I didn't try. But I feel like when you have seasons like this where there's like 1, 2, 3 returning players, or a player with reality TV experience and shows where you get voted off or whatever, they're more likely to have that fight in them because they've already been through this and they know how it works. So I think that's why players like a Barrett aren't speaking up yet because they just don't want to put themselves out there for no reason, even though like at some point they're going to wake up and it may be too late to actually make strong moves. And even if they did win an HOH, it's still too late. You don't have the numbers next week.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think that like one of the reasons why we see Dean Devins in particular coming out and swinging so hard in these first 2 weeks is like because they feel like they're playing with House 22 to a degree, right? This is, you know, they both are on their third show. I guess like D is technically on her fourth show like this. She's the challenge as well. But like, you know, they're on their third or fourth show like this. D is already one Survivor. Like she has nothing to prove. Devins like really cares about making like a, you know, a spectacle. He's like kind of a, you know, a play for entertainment kind of situation. And you know, I don't think that like either of them would be upset with like them like just like putting it all out there, playing hard, and then still coming up short. I think they'd still be content with that as an outcome. Whereas a lot of other players are like trying to like take these like ticky-tack advantages in like this middle position and not really willing to take a big swing, like kind of high risk, high reward kind of situation. And that's like allowed them, like Dee and Devins are like by far in the best two positions in the house. Like I would say Devins is probably number one right now, just because I think he has more and better relationships than Dee, like kind of across the house. But like it's like 1A, 1B, and it's been kind of like even though they've made a lot of mistakes, Dee in particular has made a number of mistakes. Devins last week I think was extremely messy as the HOH and like very much played for for TV over strategy in a lot of ways, while also like I think making a number of like kind of micro decision mistakes because of the outcomes of the competitions. They haven't really been punished yet for those mistakes. They could be punished in this upcoming week for sure, but they do have the Diamond Power veto to bail them out. So like, I just don't. I think at this point, if one of the 5 red corner members wins this HOH, lock in Dee or Devins is winning the season.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It would take like a colossal screw up for them to lose it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? I think I wanted to bring up like, who do you think who is your guess right now? Because I think like if Jason won the blockbuster and stayed, I think both of us agree he was the lock-in favorite for winning the power tomorrow, or winning at least going into the he could have got a punishment going into the time capsule tomorrow. I want to know who your prediction is on who's going to walk into the time capsule tomorrow.
I think the obvious answer is probably Dee. Aside from her, it's kind of tough. I'd say maybe a Mallory, maybe a Drew, but it's kind of tough because Mallory's just getting the most screen time because she's always in trouble. Like, I guess Lyric could be up there. I don't think Lala really. Haley's definitely not getting it. Chuck's definitely not getting it. Com was probably not too high on anyone's leaderboards. So I think aside from Dee, you're probably looking at like a Mallory, maybe a Lyric, maybe a Drew if people like him. I mean, I don't mind Drew, but I'm definitely not like rooting for or against him. I'm just kind of like seeing what happens.
I think those are also the 4 names I think are on the table for sure. I think it's definitely one of those 4. Lyric had a really good episode last night. She wins the veto. She's in the diary room. She's still talking about Rome a lot, which I don't know if that's helping or hurting her case in winning the thing. But she did have a very good episode last night, in particular. Mallory, obviously. I think a lot of the people who would have voted for Jason tonight or tomorrow morning probably move their votes to Mallory. So she can have a big bump now that Jason is out from the people that were supporting him. I did see a lot of push for Drew. My worry is with Jason probably having taken a bulk of the voting across this week, and with Drew, Mallory, and Lyric probably splitting a similar share of voters, that Dee is probably going to take it just like from a plurality. So hopefully she gets a costume if that's the case, or the have not pass or something.
Yeah, I mean, is it still kind of a crapshoot as what power they get to begin with? So
yes, yeah. I mean, look, there are 5 powers left, and I would say like 1.5 of them are good. So like, even if Dee does win the vote, it's I think very, very unlikely that it like has any continuous snowballing effect. I think it would be pretty funny if she gets the vote, goes in and gets like the have not passed, and then comes out and like tells Devins like, I got nothing. Why did you get the best power ever? And I got like a fake advantage that isn't like a real thing. It has to do with the game.
Stupid have not passed. Although that have not room is brutal, but
yeah, it is. I mean, look, I would not like throw the have not pass in the trash, but like if you gave me the choice between a 6-week Diamond Power veto versus the have not pass, I would be looking at you like that's insulting that you even have to ask.
So so is jury in 6 weeks then?
I think it's a week before jury it expires.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So I mean, look, like I think Locke, D, and Devon's both in at final 10 at least, which is like almost jury. Like
Yeah.
I would be very surprised. Like I think there are like niche scenarios where D goes home next week, but I think it's less likely. Devon's obviously is not going home next week. Like even with an HOH outcome. So it would have to be like a scenario where like a Mallory Melody Lyric wins. They take out like a Kamu next week. D and Devons are able to survive. And then somebody in that side wins the next HOH. And then I would say a D or a Devons would be in danger. So like it requires kind of a specific set of circumstances to occur over the next 2 weeks for them to be in any real danger in the short term, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think unless somehow D and Devons are both on the block together post like a veto comp, I don't think you're going to see either of them go home. I feel like Devons would probably use his power on D, but not anyone else. But he would be it would take a lot to push it to that. Like if it was like the last week he could use it, I don't even think he uses it unless he has to.
Yeah, no, I think that he says that he would use it on D, but like I don't see many scenarios where him and D are on the block, or like only one of them is on the block. I think if one of them is going up, both of them are going up. So like I think that like it's pretty much just gonna be the second he goes in the block, he's just gonna use it on himself if he doesn't win the normal veto. I guess the scenario where he would use it on D might be like, say we get a Mallory HOH, she puts up D Devons Kamu. If Devons wins the normal power veto, he might use the normal power veto on himself and then the diamond power veto on D. Like that's a scenario I could see. But I think that's pretty much the only scenario I see where he doesn't just always use it on himself.
Yeah, 100%.
So
it'll be interesting. I mean, I would love to see them get into some trouble and see how they react, because that's when we're going to see like how good of players they really are. But I mean, I think they've already cemented themselves as the best players, at least on this season.
Yeah. All right. You have a HOH comp prediction? Because the feeds are probably going to go down within the next like 45 minutes to an hour for the HOH comp. So you have a prediction on what the comp is going to be? Last week we got a booth comp, like a true or false. So
yeah, and we had the week before was kind of a crapshooty. I think something physical, or maybe something involving some form of physical skill. I think we're due for something like that. But
yeah, we haven't had a ton of physical comps this season so far, which is good.
Yeah.
It's funny that they cast like one of the most athletic casts ever, and then have had very few like really like truly physical comps. Yeah, I could see something like the black box where they go in and they have to like like maneuver through the dark escape room type thing. The thing where like Mickey and Zach got their powers in last year, something like that. I could see them do the balance beam competition, which I personally don't love. I don't think it's particularly fun TV. And I think it's kind of that's probably one of the more physical comps they've done recently. They could do an endurance. I don't think they'll do an endurance this early. I would say probably, yeah. They could do the one where like they do like a memory logic puzzle thing between the various areas of like the serial killer one that like Rachel won last year, where like it's like, oh, go to the room that has an odd number of plungers in it or whatever, and you have to like remember which room that was and get to it in the allotted time. And then if you're wrong, you're eliminated, and the serial killer comes and kills you. Something like that, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. It definitely needs to be something. I don't think it's going to be like a crapshoot entirely. I think it's going to be something involving some form of skill.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's going to be some kind of skill and probably more physical.
Yeah.
So and hopefully Pipe Queen gets it,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's anyone's game. I mean, this cast there's no like duds in terms of physical ability, except like maybe Lala. But even then, she's like in amazing shape for her age.
No, yeah, Lala's in great shape. It's just that like a lot of these comps don't like, I think Lala, if it was like a run up and down the stairs a million times comp. Like I think she would be, top 3 to 5, but like a lot of BB comps are not that type of physical skill set. A lot of it is like more coordination, or like, sometimes endurance, sometimes just like kind of balance, or like it's agility. Like these are the kind of like physical skills that Big Brother generally tests. It's not usually like athleticism or strength.
Yeah, it's built for like the Kamus of the world, with the like MMA guys, with all those. That's like what you focused on: balance, skill, agility, quickness, reaction, all that. So, but he can't play this week, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's gonna be interesting. I think we're in for a very interesting week if we have a certain particular set of HOH outcomes, but a very, very boring week if not. Although Devins and Kamu both were probably amongst the more boring options on paper to win HOHs, and we still at least got some level of drama out of both. So maybe, even if it is like still a red corner HOH, that's probably going to lock the season up, but we still might get some intrigue and drama, even in the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like a Chuck HOH. We get to see him actually talk.
Yeah, he'll give like he'll have his like weird kind of like high shower talk Confucian sayings that he says to people that like don't make any logical sense at all, and like no one will have any clue what he's doing in the game because he like talks in riddles.
Yeah, it'll just be Kamu 2.0.
Yeah, so all right, we got a lot of good outcomes. Taylor HOH gonna be fun. The HOH outcome could be fun. Any of the three littles winning, I think, would be a major power shift. Drew or Barrett winning would force them to actually pick a side, and hopefully they pick the side that will actually would help them win the season. So yeah, there's a lot of potentially interesting outcomes here. So we'll be back, at the very least in a week from today to talk about week 4. We might do, another check-in like we did this past week. If anything interesting is happening on the feeds, we do get like a huge power shift in the game. That's certainly something we'll probably want to check in on like maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So keep an eye on that. Otherwise, do you have anything else you want to talk about, Chad?
No, I mean, so far this has been a really good season. I mean, even with like boring HOHs on paper, it's still been pretty entertaining and pretty fun to watch. So far so good. Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we are kind of, like I said, hitting against the runway of like, we're like almost at the point where we're gonna go off the cliff and it's gonna kind of turn into a boring steamroll. We're not quite there, but we're like, we can see the edge of the cliff from where we're at right now. So, but yeah, so far it's been a fun ride.
Definitely.
All right, where can they find you, Chad, or are you just here?
You can find me here. I'm not really on any socials. I mean, I made a Blue Sky. You can follow me there. I think the name is Chabit25, but I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm also there, mostly just to keep up with the Big Brother stuff, because I've deleted most of my other social media, and I've been tweeting a little bit here and there, like maybe like 2 or 3 a week, or I guess not tweeting, but like it's the skeeting or whatever they call it. Yeah, otherwise, follow us here at the Have Not Room. You can find us on Better Radio. Check out the main channel, which is Wicked Good Everything, on every platform. We have, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, basically every platform that is available. I know we've been, putting out some TikTok content as well recently, both with the Wicked Good Everything and the Game Bots. Brian has been doing a lot of good content on all of the main channels on YouTube as well, so go check that all out. Otherwise, this has been the Have Not Room, and we will see you next time.